Is something most people don't talk about. Nearly 1 in 3 Americans over 65 now lives alone. But the hardest part isn't always the quiet. It's the silence that reminds you how much life has changed. The moments when you glance at the empty chair across the table or hear the echo of your own footsteps and think, is anyone else feeling this too? Soft piano fades in, warm, gentle, reflective, like the sound of morning light through open curtains. But here's the beautiful truth. Being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. Sometimes, it's the start of rediscovering who you really are beneath all the noise of life. Solitude isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. Imagine this. Mornings that belong entirely to you. No rush. No schedule. Just a quiet cup of coffee and the peace of knowing you set the rhythm now. That's not isolation, that's empowerment. If that idea stirs something inside you, take a moment to tap the like button. Not for me, but because it helps this message reach someone else who might need to hear it tonight. Because living alone can be more than an adjustment, it can be a transformation. And before we explore the 7 secrets to making that happen, let me tell you about someone who learned that truth the hard way, and turned it into the most beautiful chapter of her life. Meet Mara Locke, a 67-year-old retired science teacher living in a quiet suburb outside Tucson, Arizona. For over 40 years, she taught teenagers how the world worked, the laws of motion, the rhythm of seasons, the quiet miracle of cause and effect. But when her husband passed 2 years ago, the equations stopped making sense. The house they built together suddenly felt too big, too full of echoes. So, she downsized, a small 1-bedroom home on the edge of town, where the desert sun painted her mornings gold. She told herself it would make life simpler, fewer things to manage, fewer memories to dust. But simplicity isn't the same as peace. Mara describes those first months as a strange mix of freedom and ache. She'd keep the TV on for background noise, talk to her plants, and sometimes brew 2 cups of coffee out of habit. One for herself, one for the memory of him. The first few months were the hardest, she admits softly. I'd water my plants just to fill the silence. The days stretched wide, empty in the middle. The nights came quietly, and with them, that subtle loneliness that doesn't shout, it just lingers. But then, one morning, something shifted. The sunrise poured through her kitchen window, painting her coffee cup in amber light. She reached for an old leather journal, one she hadn't touched since her teaching days, and decided to write one small line. No plan. No reason. Just to see how it felt. She didn't know it then, but that small decision, a journal, a mug of coffee, and a sunrise, would become the turning point. And that's where secret number 1 begins, the simple habit that turned Mara's loneliness into quiet empowerment and gave her mornings meaning again. Secret number 1. Turn solitude into power, not punishment. Silence is not your enemy, it's your canvas. At first, Mara woke up to silence that felt thick. The kind that wraps around you, not gently, but with weight. There was no clatter from the kitchen, no faint hum of a conversation starting. Just stillness, so complete, it almost had a sound of its own. She said it felt like the world had taken a deep breath and forgotten to let it out. For weeks, she filled that silence however she could, old TV shows, endless radio chatter, even rearranging her furniture at 2 a.m. But one morning, sitting by the window with her untouched cup of coffee, Mara realized she was exhausting herself trying to drown out the quiet. So instead, she stopped. She turned the noise off. And she listened. That day, she started something she called the Morning 15. Just 15 minutes each morning. No phone, no television, no distractions. Just her coffee, her notebook, and the sunrise. During those minutes, she wrote one thing she was grateful for. Not the big things, not health, family, or blessings, but the tiny, fleeting details she used to overlook. The smell of toast browning in the kitchen. The wind brushing her curtains. The first light hitting the mountains. At first, it felt awkward. Forced. But slowly, something shifted. The silence that once felt like punishment began to feel like possibility. Her mind started to clear, her heartbeat slowed. She began to recognize the comfort hidden inside her own company. Psychologists now call this state cognitive quiet. It's a form of mental reset proven to increase emotional balance, improve focus, and reduce anxiety, especially among older adults. It's not meditation, exactly. It's simply being present with yourself before the world interrupts. Studies from the Mayo Clinic in 2025 even suggest that this kind of intentional silence boosts memory retention and resilience in seniors. But for Mara, it wasn't about brain chemistry. It was about coming home to herself. She said, "When I stopped fighting the quiet, I started hearing myself again." That stillness became her canvas, a space to paint her mornings with intention instead of routine. And over time, that tiny ritual gave her something powerful, a sense of control. She no longer started her day reacting to the world. She began it by centering in her own peace. That was the beginning of her transformation. What would your version of the morning 15 look like? Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's just sitting outside and listening to the birds. Tell us in the comments. Your idea might inspire someone tonight. But secret number 2 is where things really changed, the moment Mara discovered a way to make new friends and feel deeply connected, without ever leaving her house. Secret number 2. Build invisible circles of connection. Technology is the new front porch. Mara had always been a people person, the kind of teacher who knew every student's name, remembered their birthdays, and believed no question was too small to ask. Her classroom used to buzz with laughter and learning. But after she retired, that sound disappeared. The days grew quieter, the walls echoed back her thoughts, and the silence, once a comfort, began to feel like a void. One evening, while searching online for a tip on how to revive her drooping tomato plants, she found something unexpected. A Facebook group called Desert Gardeners Over 60. At first, she scrolled through quietly, watching strangers share photos of their roses, their cacti, and the occasional mischievous rabbit in the yard. There was warmth there, a kind of casual companionship she hadn't realized she missed. Then one night, she finally commented on a post, a small message about wildflowers blooming early that spring. What followed surprised her, a lively conversation about soil, sunlight, and the stubbornness of nature. But soon, the talk shifted, from gardening to grandkids, from plant care to self-care. By midnight, she'd found herself laughing out loud at her screen, something she hadn't done in a long while. That single comment became a friendship. Then 2. Then 10. Every night after dinner, Mara would make herself a cup of chamomile tea, open her laptop, and check in with her little digital garden circle. They shared photos, advice, and stories. They celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and reminded each other to drink water and enjoy the sunset. That group became what she lovingly called her invisible family. No one lived nearby, but somehow they were always there, a message away. And suddenly, the house didn't feel quite so empty. She's far from alone. Across the US, thousands of seniors are finding meaningful connection through platforms like Senior Planet, Get Set Up, and Facebook Neighborhoods. Online spaces designed to bring older adults together through shared interests, not just conversation. From cooking clubs to vintage radio enthusiasts, from book chats to birdwatching groups, these communities are redefining what it means to gather. It's not really about technology, it's about belonging. The screen isn't a wall, it's a window. A new kind of front porch, where neighbors wave from across the miles. Mara says, "I used to think friendship needed face-to-face moments. But now I see, hearts connect just fine through a screen." Have you found your online circle yet? Type "not yet" in the comments if you'd like help finding one. Maybe someone here will share a community that's perfect for you. But secret number 3 might surprise you. Because it's not about escaping loneliness, it's about learning to listen to it. That's how Mara found her true direction. Secret number 3. Let loneliness be a compass. Every lonely moment points to what your soul is craving. For a long time, Mara thought loneliness was something to fix, like a leak in the roof or a broken lamp. She'd keep herself busy just to push it away, rearranging shelves, cleaning out drawers, scrolling endlessly through her phone. But one afternoon, as she sat watching the sunlight crawl across her living room wall, she realized something. Loneliness wasn't a flaw. It was a feeling trying to tell her something. She began to see loneliness differently, not as weakness, but as guidance. So she made herself a promise. Whenever that heavy ache showed up, she wouldn't run from it. She'd ask it a question. What am I missing right now? Connection, purpose, or movement? That one question became her compass. If she felt the tug for connection, she'd call her sister or message a friend from her gardening group. If she craved purpose, she'd write down an idea, a small way she could help someone else that week. And if her body felt restless, she'd step outside and take a walk, even if it was just to the mailbox. She noticed something remarkable. The loneliness didn't vanish, but it softened. It stopped being an enemy and started becoming a messenger. Each time she listened, she learned something new about what her soul needed that day. This mindset is what psychologists now call emotional reframing, a modern therapy technique becoming increasingly common in 2025 senior wellness programs across the US. It's based on the idea that emotions aren't problems, they're data. They carry meaning. And when you stop labeling them as bad and start treating them as messengers, they guide you toward balance and self-compassion. According to new studies from the National Institute on Aging, older adults who practice emotional reframing show lower rates of depression and report higher emotional satisfaction, simply because they learn to pause and interpret what they feel instead of ignoring it. Mara says that realization changed her relationship with herself completely. Once I named what I needed, she explains, the loneliness became direction. Instead of asking, why am I feeling this way? She started asking, what is this feeling trying to tell me? And that shift, from judgment to curiosity, became one of her greatest tools for peace. When you feel lonely, what do you think your heart is asking for? Connection, purpose, or stillness? Share it in the comments. Your answer might give someone else the clarity they need tonight. Because secret number 4 is where Mara found her sense of purpose again, and what she did to rediscover it might just surprise you with how simple it really was. Secret number 4. Create a purpose anchor, one tiny mission at a time. You don't need a plan. You need a spark. For months, Mara told herself she'd lost her purpose when she left the classroom. Her days used to be filled with questions from curious minds, chalk dust on her sleeves, and the quiet pride of watching young faces light up with understanding. But in retirement, those moments were replaced with long, still afternoons, quiet, uneventful, predictable. Until one morning, while sorting through old lesson plans, she came across a note from a former student that said, "You made science feel like magic." It stirred something in her. She opened her laptop and began typing, just a few short paragraphs about one of her favorite experiments, how plants turned sunlight into energy. She called it a science story snippet. It wasn't polished or perfect, but it made her smile. On a whim, she emailed it to a few teachers she still knew from her old school, just to share a bit of inspiration. A week later, her inbox filled with responses, thank you notes from teachers and even students. One said, "Your story made me want to be a scientist someday." That single reply was enough to spark something deep inside Mara. What began as a 5-minute act of nostalgia turned into her new rhythm. Every week, she'd write and send one short story, a small piece of her old joy finding a new home. That became her purpose anchor, a simple, meaningful ritual that reminded her she still mattered, that she still had something to give. Experts call this kind of effort micro-volunteering. Small, consistent acts of purpose that fit seamlessly into daily life. Whether it's mentoring online, recording oral histories, or writing notes of encouragement, these tiny missions help older adults maintain a sense of relevance and contribution. Studies from the Stanford Center on Longevity show that people over 60 who engage in small, purpose-driven activities report up to 30% higher life satisfaction and significantly lower feelings of isolation. The secret isn't scale, it's spark. You don't need to lead a big project or start a foundation. Sometimes, the mission that changes your world is just 5 minutes long. Mara laughs about it now. I didn't need a classroom anymore, just a keyboard and a bit of courage. And in those quiet hours between dusk and dawn, her little stories turned into ripples of joy across classrooms she'd never even visited. She didn't reinvent her life, she reignited it. What's one small thing you could share with others this week? A story, a skill, or a smile? Sometimes, that tiny spark becomes someone else's light. Because secret number 5 helped Mara fall in love with her home again, and it might just change how you see the four walls around you. Secret number 5. Let your home be your companion. Your home can heal you, if you let it. When Mara first moved into her small one-bedroom home, she treated it like a waiting room, a place to pass the time, not a place to live in. The walls felt empty, the air too still. But one afternoon, while dusting her bookshelf, she stopped and whispered, "This isn't just a house anymore. It's where my story continues." That thought changed everything. She began to see her home not as a reminder of what she'd lost, but as a partner in her healing. She started small, a bird feeder outside her window so she could wake up to song instead of silence. Then came a memory corner, her husband's photo, his favorite book, and a candle she'd light every evening. The corner wasn't a shrine to sadness, it became a quiet conversation with love that still lived on. Mara filled her space with gentle music in the mornings, sometimes jazz, sometimes the sound of rain. She brought in plants, choosing each one carefully for its meaning. Peace lilies for calm, ivy for growth, lavender for rest. She replaced the harsh overhead light with warm lamps that made her evenings feel like golden hour. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. Her home began to breathe again, and so did she. Then came the final touch, creating what she called her zones. A cozy reading nook by the window for her books and morning coffee. A soft chair near her computer for video calls with her sister. A reflection spot, facing the setting sun, where she'd sit and write one line about her day. These spaces gave her rhythm, purpose, and presence. Experts now call this practice sensory zoning, designing different corners of your home around emotion and activity. It's more than decor, it's emotional architecture. Studies in 2025 by environmental psychologists show that seniors who personalize their living spaces this way experience up to a 45% decrease in anxiety and a measurable boost in daily optimism. Mara says, "Once I stopped decorating for other people's eyes and started shaping my space for my soul, my home started talking back, it became my companion." She laughs now when she says it, but there's truth in her tone. Every light, scent, and texture became part of her self-care, reminders that her life wasn't shrinking, it was deepening. Home, she realized, isn't about walls or furniture, it's about energy. And when you tend to it, it tends to you. What's one small change you could make in your space today to make it feel more like you? Maybe a candle, a plant, or a new ritual spot. Share it below and inspire someone else. But secret number 6 is where Mara discovered something powerful. How simple movement, done with joy, could lift her spirit higher than any gym routine ever could. Secret number 6. Motion is the medicine of mood. Movement is about joy, not joints. For a long time, Mara thought exercise was about discipline, something you had to do to stay healthy. But after her husband passed, even short walks felt heavy. Every path, every bench, every breeze seemed to echo the word alone. One morning, though, something shifted. Instead of walking to get her steps in, she decided to walk simply to notice. She called them her purpose walks. No timers, no fitness trackers, just her and the world. Each day, she picked something different to focus on. One morning, she counted bird songs. Another, she looked for colors, red flowers, blue skies, green leaves. On another day, she followed the scent of blooming sage after a light rain. These weren't workouts, they were small adventures in awareness. That gentle rhythm, the sound of her shoes on gravel, the hum of distant traffic, the laughter of children playing, became her therapy. Slowly, the walks turned from an escape into an embrace. Her heart began to steady. Her thoughts softened. The world didn't feel so large and lonely anymore. Research backs up what Mara discovered on those quiet sidewalks. Studies in 2025 show that just 15 minutes of mindful movement can boost mood by up to 40% among seniors. Not intense workouts, not gym routines, just movement with meaning. Walking, gardening, stretching, even swaying to your favorite old song, every small act of motion reminds your body it's alive and your spirit it's still curious. Mara laughs when she talks about it now. "It's like my body reminds my mind I'm still here," she says, smiling. And every time I move, I feel like I'm saying thank you, to my heart, to my legs, to this life that keeps going. Asterisk. She also started adding what she called motion anchors throughout her day: a short stretch before coffee, a slow dance while dinner simmers, a 2-minute tidy up before bedtime. Tiny rituals that made her day flow instead of drift. Experts now recognize this as joyful movement therapy, a growing wellness trend helping older adults reconnect with their bodies through play, not pressure. For Mara, movement became more than exercise. It was a form of gratitude in motion. A daily reminder that she wasn't frozen in her loss. She was still evolving, still growing, still becoming. Mara puts it best: you don't move to get somewhere. You move to remember you're already here. What's one movement you could add to your routine just for joy? Maybe a walk at sunset, a dance while you cook, or a few stretches before bed. Share your idea below and inspire someone to move with you. But secret number 7 is the one Mara says finally brought her peace, a nightly ritual so simple, anyone can start it tonight. Secret number 7. Make your solitude sacred. Ritual turns alone time into peace time. As night falls, Mara's house grows quiet, the kind of quiet that used to make her feel small. But now, it feels different. Now, it feels like a friend arriving to sit beside her. Every evening around 8:30, she follows the same gentle rhythm, what she calls her evening gratitude ritual. She brews a cup of chamomile tea, dims the lights, and lights a single candle on her kitchen table. The flame flickers softly, painting the walls in gold. Then she opens a small notebook, one she bought at a local thrift shop, and writes one sentence. Just one. Sometimes it's "I saw a hummingbird today." Other nights, it's "the world feels heavy, but I still showed up." She finishes with 2 whispered words: "Thank you." That's it. 10 minutes. A cup of tea. A flicker of light. A sentence of truth. Yet somehow, this simple act transformed her nights from restless to restful. This is what experts are now calling micro-ritual therapy: small, intentional practices that give structure and meaning to daily life. A growing number of wellness programs for older adults in 2025 are using it to help seniors create emotional closure at the end of the day. These rituals lower evening stress, improve sleep quality, and reduce feelings of isolation. But beyond the science, they remind the heart that it's still connected, to memory, to gratitude, to something larger than the silence. Mara says she no longer feels like she's ending the day alone. She's ending it in gratitude. Every night, her ritual becomes a bridge between what was and what could still be. She even created a little altar on her side table. Nothing elaborate, just meaningful. A photo of her husband smiling, a small stone from their favorite hiking trail, and the candle she lights each night. It's her way of saying, "I'm still here. We're still connected. Life still matters." For Mara, solitude stopped being the absence of people. It became the presence of peace. There's something beautiful, she says, about realizing you don't need a crowd to feel whole. You just need a moment to listen, and a light to guide you there. This idea is resonating deeply with seniors across the US, from New York to Arizona, as more people rediscover how ritual can turn ordinary evenings into sacred pauses. Whether it's prayer, journaling, tea-making, or just 5 minutes of reflection, these small acts tell your soul, you're home. What's one small nightly ritual that could make your evenings calmer? Maybe lighting a candle, playing your favorite song, or simply writing one line of gratitude. Share your idea below and inspire someone to start theirs tonight. And now, Mara's journey comes full circle, from silence to peace, from loneliness to purpose. And her final lesson just might change how you see your own solitude. The story of Mara Locke doesn't close with the sound of laughter or the buzz of company. It closes with peace. A deep, quiet peace that fills every corner of her home, like a soft hum beneath the stillness. She sits by her window now most evenings, candle lit, cup of tea in hand, the desert sky glowing purple outside. The same house that once echoed with silence now feels alive, not because someone walked in, but because she did. She smiles and says, "I used to live alone. Now, I just live." Her silence became her strength. Her loneliness became her compass. Her home became her sanctuary. And her solitude became sacred. These 7 secrets weren't really secrets at all. They were reminders that peace doesn't arrive with people, it begins with presence. That solitude isn't empty, it's full of who you're becoming. And that it's never too late to rewrite the story of your days. If you're listening to this, maybe you're sitting in your own quiet tonight, wondering what comes next. Let this be your reminder. You're not just getting through this stage of life. You're shaping it. You're building a rhythm that belongs entirely to you. Because life after 60 isn't a closing chapter. It's a quieter, wiser beginning, one written on your own terms. If this story touched your heart, give this video a like. It helps YouTube share it with someone else who needs hope tonight. And subscribe to Elderly Dose for more stories that remind you, life after 60 isn't about slowing down, it's about showing up.